The galaxy had long been under the shadow of the Galactic Council, a coalition of the most advanced species who wielded unmatched authority. Their warships patrolled the stars, enforcing the Council's laws with an iron fist. To these rulers, Earth was an insignificant speck, a world barely worth notice. But humanity had learned to survive in the face of adversity, and history was about to deliver its ultimate test. On Earth, Commander Alyssa Trent stood in the Situation Room of the Resolute, humanity's flagship. Around her, a group of seasoned officers analyzed holographic projections of the Council's fleet, a fearsome collection of ships advancing toward Earth. The Council's ultimatum, broadcast across human territories, was still playing on repeat. Surrender. Offer tribute. This is your only chance to survive. The room buzzed with tension, but Alyssa's focus never wavered. She turned to Captain Miles Kane, her closest advisor and an unyielding realist. "What's the likelihood they'll listen to reason if we refuse?" she asked, her tone deceptively calm. Miles grimaced. "Slim to none. They see us as pests. This isn't a negotiation, it's extermination disguised as diplomacy." Alyssa nodded, her expression hardening. Humanity's history of defiance had led them to this moment. If the Council thought Earth would bow, they had profoundly underestimated the resilience of a species born of war and survival. As the Council's fleet entered the solar system, Earth's defenses activated. Orbital platforms powered up, shields flared to life, and fighters deployed in tight formations. To the Galactic Council, it looked like a pitiful resistance, a few sparks of defiance before an inevitable collapse. Aboard the Eminence, the flagship of the Council's fleet, Admiral Kael'Zer assessed Earth's forces with disdain. His subordinates murmured in agreement as he sneered. "This will be over in minutes. Their weapons are outdated. Their tactics primitive. Begin the bombardment." From the surface of Earth, citizens watched as streaks of fire crossed the night sky, missiles launched from Council ships. Panic rippled through cities, but Alyssa remained resolute. "Bring up the Chimera system," she ordered. The room hushed as Earth's hidden ace came online. The Chimera system had been humanity's most guarded secret, a network of adaptive satellites capable of creating energy barriers and reflecting attacks. As the missiles approached, the system flared into action, weaving a shimmering net across the planet's atmosphere. Explosions lit up the skies as the projectiles disintegrated harmlessly. Miles let out a low whistle. "They're going to be furious." Alyssa smirked. "Let them be. They haven't seen anything yet." The Council's fleet hesitated. Admiral Zer's confidence faltered as he witnessed humanity's unexpected ingenuity. "How did they?" "Deploy ground troops immediately. Let them witness true power." Dropships poured out of the Council's warships, descending onto Earth with mechanical precision. Armored soldiers, towering and menacing, marched through human territories. They expected chaos, surrender. What they encountered instead were civilians wielding homemade EMP devices and guerrilla tactics that turned the urban sprawl into a death trap. In the Situation Room, Alyssa monitored the skirmishes with pride. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was fighting back with ingenuity that turned every street into a battlefield. The Council had come expecting submission. What they found instead was a fight they weren't prepared for. The Council's initial offensive had been a disaster. Dropships meant to intimidate and dominate were either destroyed mid-landing or rendered useless by Earth's improvised defenses. What the Council viewed as primitive, Earth's urban sprawl, its dense forests, and its inhospitable deserts, became insurmountable obstacles. Admiral Kael'Zer slammed his fist onto the console aboard the Eminence. "How are these savages countering us? Increase orbital strikes. They can't hide forever." The order was carried out immediately. Council warships rained plasma fire upon Earth's surface. Cities burned, forests ignited, and the planet seemed to groan under the onslaught. But amidst the chaos, humanity's resilience remained unbroken. Underground bunkers shielded millions, while remote regions harbored resistance fighters who refused to yield an inch. In the Situation Room aboard the Resolute, Alyssa Trent stood at the center of an electrified storm of activity. Live feeds showed areas of devastation alongside heartening images of Council troops overwhelmed by human ingenuity. Captain Miles came pace behind her, his brow furrowed. "They're escalating. We can't keep absorbing hits like this," Miles said, gesturing to the screen where an entire block of resistance fighters had been obliterated by plasma bombardment. Alyssa nodded grimly. "We can't afford to just hold the line. It's time to push back." Miles raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we take the fight to them? Their fleet outguns us 10-1. "Exactly," Alyssa said. "Which means they'll never see it coming." The room quieted as Alyssa outlined her audacious plan. Earth's orbital defenses would create a temporary opening in the Council's formation using precision counterstrikes. A single strike team, carrying humanity's most advanced weaponry, would infiltrate the Eminence. Their mission: disable the Council's command network, plunging their fleet into disarray. "Who's leading this suicide mission?" Miles asked, though he already knew the answer. "I am," Alyssa said without hesitation. The crew erupted in protest, but Alyssa silenced them with a look. "This is bigger than any one of us. If we succeed, we send a message to the galaxy that humanity won't be bullied. If we fail, well, we don't have the luxury of failure." The team was assembled within the hour. Handpicked from Earth's elite operatives, they were outfitted with cutting-edge stealth suits and EMP disruptors designed specifically to counter Council technology. The plan hinged on perfect timing and execution. The Resolute unleashed a ferocious barrage, momentarily forcing the Council fleet into a defensive posture. Under this cover, Alyssa's strike team launched in a modified shuttle, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible. The journey to the Eminence was tense, every second feeling like an eternity as the shuttle weaved through the chaos of battle. Meanwhile, admirals fumed on the bridge of the Eminence. Reports of troop losses and failed bombardments flooded in, each one a blow to his pride. "They're persistent," he muttered. "No matter. Persistence can't stop inevitability." He was wrong. The strike team breached the Eminence's hull undetected, their suits masking their signatures from the ship's advanced scanners. Moving with practiced precision, they infiltrated the ship's command systems, disabling security protocols and planting EMP charges. Alyssa led the way, her every movement calculated and precise. The team faced resistance, automated turrets, patrol drones, and a handful of alien guards, but humanity's operatives were unmatched in adaptability. They fought with controlled ferocity, neutralizing threats without hesitation. When they reached the ship's central command nexus, Alyssa paused, her hand hovering over the activation switch for the EMP charges. This was the moment that would decide Earth's fate. "Once these go off, there's no turning back," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the decision. Miles' voice crackled over the comms. "Then do it, Commander. Let's show them what humans are made of." Alyssa activated the EMP charges. A surge of energy rippled through the Eminence, frying its systems and severing its connection to the rest of the fleet. The once mighty warship fell silent, its weapons powerless and its crew paralyzed by confusion. On Earth and aboard the Resolute, cheers erupted as the Council fleet faltered. Ships that relied on the Eminence for coordination became vulnerable, their formations breaking apart. The tide of the battle was turning, and for the first time, the Council realized they were not facing an enemy to be underestimated. The Eminence's command systems were down, but the chaos that followed was only just beginning. As Alyssa's team watched, the realization hit them. The damage they'd done was only the first phase of a battle that would not end with a single victory. While the Council's fleet faltered in disarray, Earth's forces were still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. "What's next?" one of her team members, Lieutenant Mason, asked, scanning the monitors nervously. "We've created a mess, but that's all we've done. We need to hold our ground now." Alyssa turned to him, her expression unwavering. "We push forward. We hit them hard while they're vulnerable. It's time to show them that humanity is capable of more than they could ever imagine." With the Eminence temporarily disabled, the remaining Council ships began to panic. Communications were down, and their strategic coordination crumbled. It was the perfect time for Earth's forces to seize the initiative. "Let's move!" Alyssa barked. The team moved swiftly, planting more EMP charges and sabotaging critical infrastructure. Every second counted. The goal was to disable as much of the eminence as possible, including its weapon systems, so the remaining fleet could no longer rely on it. But the Council wasn't done yet. Out of the shadows of the ship's towering corridors came a new threat, a battalion of elite Council guards. These soldiers, known for their deadly combat prowess, had been deployed to secure the ship after the breach. They wore black armor that glinted under the dim lights, with weapons designed for extreme lethality. "They won't go down easily," Mason muttered under his breath, his hand tightly gripping his rifle. The team's quick movement faltered as the guards advanced, their presence casting a new shadow over the operation. Alyssa signaled for her team to take cover behind the nearest walls. The sound of metallic footsteps echoed through the hall as the Council guards closed in, their glowing eyes scanning the surroundings. "We have to move fast," Alyssa whispered. "We have the element of surprise, use it!" The first guard stepped into their line of sight, and in an instant, the firefight began. Alyssa fired first, sending a pulse directly into the chest of the lead guard. He crumpled to the floor, but his comrades retaliated quickly, unleashing a barrage of deadly firepower. The team dove for cover, returning fire as the walls around them cracked and sparks flew. It was a battle of agility, wit, and speed. The Council soldiers were highly trained, but humanity's soldiers were resilient. They adapted on the fly, turning every corner, every hallway, into a tactical advantage. "Grenades!" Mason shouted. He tossed a stun grenade into the midst of the guards, temporarily blinding them with a flash of bright light. The team seized the opportunity, firing relentlessly as they pressed forward. But the enemy wasn't backing down. More and more guards poured into the hallway, their reinforcements growing rapidly. Every moment felt like an eternity as the team was forced to retreat, unable to break through the flood of attackers. Alyssa knew this wasn't going to be won with sheer force. She scanned the room and saw an old maintenance shaft at the far end. If they could make it there, they'd be able to strike the Council's command center and finish what they started. "Everyone, fall back to the maintenance shaft. We'll regroup there," Alyssa ordered. As the team rushed to retreat, the Council guards pushed forward, their weapons blazing. There was no time to waste. The team ducked into the maintenance shaft, with Alyssa taking the lead. "We need to disable the weapon systems before we can make our final push," Alyssa said, her voice steady, despite the chaos unfolding around her. "Once we do that, the rest of the fleet will be sitting ducks." Mason glanced back, panting. "I'm not sure we can hold out long enough." Alyssa gave him a determined smile. "We'll hold. You focus on getting the weapons offline. I'll cover you." As the team made their way deeper into the shaft, they encountered another challenge. The Eminence's security systems had locked down. The doors slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. The team was surrounded by an electrified force field, with only one way out, through the control center. "We're going to need to hack into the system," said Mason. "I'll need a few minutes to bypass their security." "Take the time you need," Alyssa said, looking out for potential threats. Every second that passed felt like an eternity. The hum of electricity crackled through the air as the team waited, watching their surroundings with wary eyes. A tense silence hung in the air, broken only by the sounds of their own breath. "I'm in," Mason finally said. The door opened with a loud hiss. The team poured into the control center, and it was time for the final strike. The tension had reached its peak. Alyssa's team was on the verge of victory, but the hardest part was yet to come. This was their moment. If they could finish disabling the Eminence, the Council fleet would be completely vulnerable. Humanity's power would prove too much to ignore. But nothing would be certain until that last door was breached. As the control center door opened, the team burst through with tactical precision, weapons raised, and ready for anything. Inside, the control center was a maze of holographic screens, flashing warning signals, and the faint hum of energy circulating through the complex. The team immediately began working, each soldier falling into their role with instinctive efficiency. "Start with the main weapons grid," Alyssa commanded. "We disable that, and there'll be nothing more than sitting targets." Mason, still catching his breath, rushed to the central terminal, his fingers flying over the console. Alyssa and the others kept watch, eyes constantly scanning for any sign of movement. The quiet tension of waiting was almost unbearable, but Alyssa could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This was humanity's chance to prove the strength they had been dismissed for so long. The minutes stretched out, every second crucial to their success. Alyssa could hear the distant echo of council guards scrambling, regrouping, but she pushed those thoughts aside. This was their time. They would not let the council escape. Suddenly, the console in front of Mason blinked. A harsh red light flashed across the screen, signaling an alert. The council wasn't going down without a fight. "They're locking down everything," Mason growled. "We'll have to fight our way out if we don't act fast." Alyssa's mind raced. They needed a distraction, something to buy Mason enough time to finish disabling the weapons systems. There was no hesitation in her voice when she spoke. "I'll buy you that time. You get the job done." With a quick nod, Mason refocused on his work. Alyssa turned to the rest of the team. "We hold them off, no matter what. This is it, people." Just as she spoke, a thunderous blast shook the facility. The walls rattled, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. From the corridors leading into the control center, a new wave of council reinforcements poured in, their armor gleaming in the dim light. Alyssa's heart pounded, but her resolve was unshaken. The battle was on, and they would not retreat. "We're outnumbered, but we've got the advantage," Alyssa said, gripping her rifle tighter. "They think they have us, but they've forgotten one crucial thing about us: our ability to adapt, to fight for what we believe in. And we're not backing down now." The team responded in unison, ready for the fight. Shots rang out as they opened fire, pushing back the oncoming forces. The enemies in their path were formidable, but the humans weren't the same as they'd been before. This was a battle for survival, for their future, and they would give everything to win it. In the chaos of the firefight, Alyssa's mind remained laser-focused. She could hear Mason muttering to himself as he worked, trying to circumvent the lockdown protocols the council had triggered. His words were inaudible over the sound of gunfire, but Alyssa could see the strain on his face. Time was running out. The team fought valiantly, using every tactic and trick they had learned throughout their years of training. They fought in ways that the council couldn't anticipate, adjusting on the fly to the evolving situation. For every wave of reinforcements, the humans countered with unyielding determination. Alyssa's heart raced as the battle intensified. She could feel the pressure mounting as her team kept pushing forward, defending the critical systems that Mason was working to disable. With every passing moment, it became clear that they weren't just fighting for their survival, they were fighting for the future of humanity. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mason let out a triumphant shout. "It's done! The weapons systems are offline!" At that moment, the air in the control room felt electric. The humans had done it. They had managed to disable the Eminence's main offensive capabilities, neutralizing the threat the Council's fleet posed. But it wasn't over yet. They still had to get out of the facility, still had to make sure that no backup systems could bring the weapons online again. The next part of the mission was crucial. Alyssa breathed a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. "Now we finish it." The team rushed to exit the control center, taking down anyone who stood in their way. They moved like a well-oiled machine, flawlessly executing their plan as they navigated the maze of corridors. Outside, the faint sounds of the Council fleet retreating were drowned out by the deafening battle still raging. The human force wasn't stopping. They had claimed victory in this battle, but they knew the war had only just begun. As Alyssa and her team made their way to the extraction point, her mind swirled with thoughts of what lay ahead. The Galactic Council would be forced to reckon with the strength of humanity. This wasn't just a victory, it was a message to the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As the final echoes of battle rang in their ears, Alyssa's team emerged victorious, standing tall amidst the wreckage. They had fought not just for survival, but for a future where Earth would no longer be a footnote in the galaxy's history. The mission was complete. The Council's attempt to control humanity had failed. The victory was humanity's, and it was only the beginning.